This video contains spoilers for Arcane Season 1 and 2. Season 1 ends with Jinx embracing her identity as Jinx and killing Powder, but she begins Season 2 by not feeling like Jinx anymore and later declaring her dead. This is not bad writing, but coherent steps of an intense identity journey that we will retrace, analyze, and understand more deeply in this video, from her first monkey bomb to her last one. This analysis will also give a new, surprisingly beautiful meaning to Jinx's ending. The first monkey bomb by Powder is pivotal for her journey and for the whole Arcane plot. Powder accidentally kills almost her whole family, except for Vi, who is left, however, deeply shocked. In the heat of the moment, Vi calls Powder a Jinx and hits her, before leaving her ideally temporarily, but she won't able to go back to her for a long time. Jinx is not a random insult she addresses to Powder. It's the same insult Milo had been repeating to her, and which Vi used to strongly reject to protect her sister from self-doubt. Until now. Now Vi herself is the one confirming to Powder that she is indeed a Jinx. This confirmation is also reinforced by Powder realizing that she has brought destruction over her whole family. Silco finds her at that moment. While Vi's insult and punch makes Powder feel angry and betrayed, as demonstrated by her statement, "She's not my sister anymore," she probably feels an intense and overwhelming anguished guilt, too, knowing the catastrophe she has caused to her loved ones. These events scar her deeply, and Silco, her new caretaker, does not guide her through healing it, or maybe he tries, but in his own distorted style. But anyway, he ends up, intentionally or not, nourishing this scar. He tries to make Powder love Jinx, the monster that she discovered inside herself. He tries to make Powder Jinx for real. In the scene between the two of them at the river, episode 5, season 1, Silco encourages Jinx to let go of Powder once for all and be born again as Jinx. Silco loves Jinx and everything she does. Even while dying because of Jinx in episode 9, season 1, he still declares that Jinx is perfect. For him, Jinx is not a monster inside of Powder that needs to be fixed. For him, Jinx has nothing wrong and is the best person possible that Powder can be. He has not only nourished Jinx, but also shaped her to become his beloved and loving daughter, his most loyal accomplice, and his deadliest weapon. Jinx is a product and a tool of Silco. Her existence is dependent on him. I will not discuss further if Silco really loved Jinx selflessly, if he manipulated her intentionally, if he was a good father, and other questions, because those would require to analyze in depth Silco's character specifically, which I haven't done yet. So I'll pass everything that does not directly concern our analysis of Jinx. The problem is, Jinx is both Powder and Jinx. She is a Powder who has been traumatized and developed her Jinx traits. But she's not only one or the other. She has traits from both parts of her. This is why she can't destroy either identity, and it is probably the cause of her mental struggles. Powder has an healed trauma. She is artificially trying to suppress her by forcing the distorted identity of Jinx. In episode 6, she tells Vi that Powder fell down a well. But then in episode 9, she claims that she can still be Powder again, implying that she did not in fact fall down a well. The dilemma between Powder and Jinx at her creepy tea party highlights how each of these identities is very linked to the people that are around Jinx. She claims she will either go back to Powder if she reconciles with Vi, or invest into Jinx if she sticks with Silco. Her identity is dependent on the environment that she has around her. At the end of episode 9, Jinx seems to embrace completely her identity as Jinx, and she is in that moment, but not forever. This choice is caused by Silco's death. Deeply hurt by this, Jinx is moved to execute the will of Silco at the most intense degree she has ever done. So she completely embraces Jinx in that moment, and she shoots her rocket against Piltover as Silco's plans had wished for her to do. But at the same time, the moment in which Jinx is the most intense she has ever been is also the moment where she dies. Jinx can only exist with Silco. She is a creature spawned by Vi's action, but raised and shaped by Silco. Without him, she doesn't have a purpose and can't exist. So, the moment Silco and consequently Jinx die is also the moment in which Jinx lives the most intensely, in the last blow of her existence, the brightest flare before being extinguished, like a swan song. In fact, while she shoots the rocket against Piltover, she seems to be disintegrated by her own weapon, as if this act symbolically killed her. At the start of Season 2, Episode 2, it's evident that Jinx, despite keeping the same name and sticking to this identity because of habit, is left with no purpose. She starts slowly distancing herself from the identity of Jinx and looking for another identity, another role. This is not immediate. She doesn't know if she can be somebody different, and how to find purpose exactly. At the beginning, she has a doomer perspective on wishing to see everything crumble and burn just like herself. But then she starts connecting with Sevika and Isha. She fixes things, and she realizes she is still emotional about Vi. Isha, in particular, has an important role not only for helping Jinx change, but also for symbolizing visually the changes that are occurring inside Jinx. In fact, I have dedicated a whole video to Isha, the numerous parallelisms with Powder, and Jinx's evolution with her. I recommend you watch that video to have the whole picture, because I'm not repeating all those scene breakdowns and detailed analysis here. During the whole Act 2 of Season 2, Jinx is less and less Jinx. She connects in a healthy way with Isha, Vi, Vander, and even with the Zonites she frees from the prison of Stillwater. None of these people treat her like the Jinx she has acted as during the whole Season 1. So Jinx starts to hope and believe that she has the possibility to be something different than Jinx. This identity that, despite her hard tries, was never able to fit her completely. She starts to see another possible future for her. In episode 6, she tells Isha that, since they met, she started seeing things differently. This means that Isha helped her abandon the perspective of Jinx. But she adds, I don't understand if I see more clearly or more blurry. My interpretation is that, despite distancing herself from Jinx and therefore shifting perspective of life and on herself, she hasn't found the new perspective that feels right to her yet. She's still looking, especially because she is leaning towards regressing to Powder, and in particular to the Powder that was never traumatized before Jinx's creation. But this is not possible, of course. She can't ignore the fact that Jinx has happened. She should move on from there, not going back to a lost past precedent to Jinx. This regression of Jinx is particularly evident when considering her protection of Isha from the many parallel problems that once scarred Powder. And as said, I already analyzed this in depth in another video, so here I'm leaving it only at this short summary. When Jinx loses Isha and Wander at the same time in episode 6, after hoping to build a family with them, she takes it as a confirmation that she cannot be a different person. She's Jinx, she brings misfortune and harm to whoever is around her, and this is her destiny. She goes back, or rather, she feels forced back to the identity of Jinx. This idea was already expressed actually in episode 2, when she states that she is aware of bringing harm to whoever approaches her as a threat to Smitch, who at that moment was invading her personal space. She used to think this was her specialty, as repeatedly confirmed by Milo, then the death of her family, Vi, and encouraged by Silco. Then in Act 2, Season 2, she started thinking that maybe she doesn't need to be a Jinx. But now Isha and Wander's death push her back in her own identity cage. She doesn't like bringing harm to the people whom she learned to love again, but she feels she is doomed to. She must be Jinx, but she doesn't want to. This appears evident in her conversation with Kate while she is in prison in episode 8. She doesn't want to exist anymore because she doesn't want to be Jinx, but she thinks she can only be Jinx. She begs Kate to make her disappear. She denies any possibility of her changing and being different, not because she doesn't want to, but because she thinks it's not possible. She tried hoping that for a while, and it resulted in more harm to her loved ones. This is why she doesn't apologize to Kate for killing her mother. Apologies require a change so that harm doesn't happen again. Jinx believes she cannot change, she can't be redeemed. She even tells Caitlyn, knowing or not that your mother was there in the building I was blowing up would not have changed anything. She expresses the idea that destruction is inevitable in her presence, out of her own control or will. Then Jinx has an hallucination in which Silco tells her that the cycle of violence in which he is involved is bigger and older than her, and that she can only escape by walking away. Silco mentions social conventions and obligations as a prison that becomes an identity. Jinx feels in this situation. She is imprisoned in Jinx's identity, forced on her by the external forces around her. This identity shows up in interaction with enemies, such as Caitlyn, who treat her like Jinx, or with loved ones who succumb to her destructive power. Jinx is forced to be Jinx by the world around her, by the circumstances that always end up making her Jinx, no matter the effort she puts to be different. In prison, Jinx's hair is loose for the first time. Jinx's braids were a very recognizable trait of her. She indicates them to the skeptical guard as still water to help her identify her. And in order to have such long braids, Jinx must have let them grow since she met Silco. So the braids have been there along with Jinx during her whole existence and growing with her. Now she detangles them. She doesn't want to be Jinx anymore. But the long hair is still attached to her head and covers her as if it were trapping her in an unescapable net. She is imprisoned in the identity of Jinx. When she decides to make Jinx completely cease, she cuts her long hair. There, Ekko intervenes to stop her before she makes an irreversible mistake. He is able to explain to her that she is not doomed to be Jinx forever. No matter who she was in the past, she can live a different future. In the next scene, both Jinx and Ekko have quite different styles, suggesting that they have been spending some time together, and Ekko has probably helped her build a different appearance for herself as a symbol of the start for her new path of life. Then she fights along her sister, and at the end she sees her in danger. It becomes evident to Jinx that Vi will always sacrifice for the people she loves. She puts herself in danger in hope to still find wonder again, and immediately after that she overlooks her own safety to save Jinx from falling. It becomes evident to Jinx that as long as she will be with Vi, because of her personality and tendency to sacrifice, she will represent a risk for her safety. Jinx has already hurt everybody around her. Vi is the only one who, despite being harmed too, is still there. Jinx surely doesn't want to expose her to the risk she represents. She doesn't want to become Jinx again with Vi. She has already tried to rebuild the family with her, and it did not go well. And here, right now, Vi is exposing herself to danger because of Jinx. In this exact moment, the world, the destiny, is preparing another event that makes Jinx, a destructive force. It's about to happen again. The identity of Jinx will be forced on her again, but Jinx rejects this role, deciding to act to prevent this and carrying out the agency of defining herself and her own destiny despite the adverse circumstances. She outsmarts destiny and demonstrates that she is the only force who can shape her own fate, not bending to external forces. I think that here Jinx understands that the best option for her to keep her sister safe, but also to feel free to build a new life without the risk of harming anybody, is to go far away on her own. Letting Vi think she is dead will prevent her from looking for her, finally allowing Vi to focus on her own well-being. It's a sad ending because the hope of seeing the sisters live happily together fades away. But as Kate says in her celebratory discourse for the fallen in the war at the end of episode 9, our only consolation is that through this loss we found some good. This ending, despite not being the one we, or at least I, have been wishing for, is the best ending to grant an optimal future both for Jinx and Vi. In their last interaction, they both make actions that prioritize the safety of the sister rather than their own. It's a declaration of love, which still resonates loudly with each other's hearts, even if they are distant, even if they are grieving the other, even if they are worlds apart. This is one of the meanings I link to Jinx saying, "Always with you, sis, even when we are worlds apart," during the battle. I'm still working on other possible meanings, but this is one. As I mentioned, Isha reveals more in depth the evolution of Jinx during season 2. Here I retraced an overview of the whole arc of Jinx with her most pivotal moments, while Isha's analysis uncovers details of how Jinx deals with specific internal struggles and the remains of her powder identity. So I recommend catching up with that video to have the whole picture. Leave a like and let me know in the comments if you agree with my analysis of Jinx's journey, and subscribe for more arcane video essays. Bye!